Well, Professor Ian Plimer is Professor Emeritus at the University of Melbourne. He's warned us for years against the so-called scientific consensus on climate change, which is an illusion. And now with summer approaching and ludicrous reports that we had last month, the hottest day ever, and Thunberg enters again, parading her ignorance, saying a top climate scientist is warning that climate change will wipe out all of us unless we stop using fossil fuels over the next 5 years. To spare us from this idiocy, Ian Plimer joins us. Professor Plimer, thank you for your note. Europe seems to have woken up. When will we?
Well, I think we're so wealthy, it's going to take a lot longer. We've got some serious problems. This religion called climate change is such that people don't question. And the first question you've got to ask is, can you please show me that human emissions of carbon dioxide drive global warming? That's never been shown. So we have a fundamental problem to start with. No wonder the ideology is not working, because the basics just don't underpin it. The second thing is, what on earth is net zero? If we had net zero, in other words, we didn't release carbon dioxide, then you wouldn't eat. Because when you eat, you convert carbon compounds, which go into your body, and the rest you get rid of. We breathe in 0.04% carbon dioxide. We breathe out 4%. That's us getting rid of carbon dioxide. So if we had net zero, you'd have to drop dead. And this is what the Green Movement really is. It's an anti-human movement. It's a movement that's arguing very strongly that there is no place for humans on planet Earth, that humans are not part of nature. Now, I'm happy to abide by their rules as long as they pop off first. I promise. I'll follow. So,
yes, we know.
We are just being fed total codswallop.
Yes, it is codswallop. This argument that temperature data shows that temperature increases have occurred in the last 2 decades. As I understand it, the 10-year average has barely changed since 2007. Who corrects this stuff?
Well, whose temperature data? If you look at the data from satellites and balloons, then we see that the planet is undergoing a very slight cooling. If you look at the temperature data collected mainly on the land and mainly in the US and Europe, those numbers have been corrected. The old figures have been pushed down a little bit, and it makes it look as if we're on a warming trend. If you look over archaeological time, then we reached the centre, the peak of our interglacial, and that's the warm period between 2 ice ages. We reached the peak of that 7,000 to 4,000 years ago, and since then we've been cooling with spikes of warming and cooling. If you look at through the geological proxies, then we've been cooling for the last 50 million years. We entered an ice age 34 million years ago. We're still in that. So the key question is, when someone asks you, well, you know, we better change our ways, change all your ways because we're warming, you've got to say, since when? Yeah. Since the time of Jesus, we've actually cooled. Since the Dark Ages, we've warmed. Since the medieval times, we've cooled. Since the Little Ice Age, we've warmed. So it's all perspective. It's all relative to what we measure. Now, if we look at the history of the planet, we have cycles of warming and cycles of cooling, and the cycle we're in at present is no different from anything we've ever experienced in the past. We are living in quite boring times, actually.
And nothing to do with carbon dioxide. Before we get onto this temperature business and the hottest day and all that stuff, just a simple question to you. Where do you think, as a nation, we're going to finish up by closing down coal mines, abandoning coal-fired power, banning gas appliances, and if the appliances then have to be electric, where does the electric come from? Victoria's banning gas in new homes. In Britain, where you'd have to say the Conservative Party is on the ropes, it won the by-election for Boris Johnson's seat because of Labor's extreme so-called climate policies. And the Labor London Mayor Sadiq Khan has this ultra-low emissions zone, ULEZ, taxing petrol and diesel cars the equivalent of $25 a day. I suppose Bowen would be thinking of that here. So with all of that together, Professor Ian Plimer, where are we heading? You know, abandon coal-fired power, abandon gas, pretend renewables can do the job. We've got no transmission lines. We don't even have the territory or the land to stick up wind turbines. Where the hell is this ideology taking us?
It's taking us to bankruptcy. There's no other solution. And the only way we will wake up is to go bankrupt or to have some massive fright. And we are putting ourselves in a position for this fright because we are strategically exposing ourselves. We rely on the seaways to keep this country alive. And if we do not wake up soon, we are exposed in terms of our sovereignty. We are exposed in terms of our energy, in terms of our food production. We are like a shag on a rock. We are facing very, very serious times unless we have cheap, reliable energy that is not dependent upon people outside this country.
That's right.